Congressional record published Wednesday, June 25, 2025. In the Senate on Tuesday, June 24, 2025, the day began with a prayer by Chaplain Dr. Barry C. Black, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by the President, pro tempore. The Senate then moved into executive session to consider the nomination of Daniel Zimmerman of North Carolina as Assistant Secretary of Defense. After debate, the Senate confirmed Mr. Zimmerman by a vote of 61 yea to 35 nay. Senator Chuck Grassley, a Republican from Iowa, addressed the chamber advocating for Medicaid work requirements for able-bodied adults. He emphasized that work provides purpose and dignity, and outlined reasonable exemptions for veterans, medically frail individuals, parents, and others. Senator Grassley cited data showing a decline in labor force participation among prime-age men, and argued that work requirements would encourage self-sufficiency. Senator John Thune, a Republican from South Dakota, spoke on the third anniversary of the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. He highlighted new protections for unborn children in many states, and criticized Democrats for supporting abortion rights. Senator Thune also discussed a major reconciliation bill aimed at strengthening national security, border security, and energy independence. He praised investments in military readiness and border enforcement included in the bill. Senator John Barrasso, a Republican from Wyoming, praised Amber Moyerman for over 25 years of Senate service, and honored Colonel Doreen Durand of the U.S. Air Force for his leadership in liaising with Congress on defense matters. Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa recognized Acorn Bluff Farms as Senate Small Business of the Week for their heritage pork products and community involvement. Several senators spoke on reproductive rights marking the third anniversary of Dobbs. Senator Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire and Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota condemned restrictive abortion laws and highlighted their harmful effects on women's health and equality. Senator Lisa Blunt Rochester of Delaware shared personal stories illustrating the impact of abortion restrictions on women's lives. Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin described hardships faced by women under old abortion laws still in effect in her state. Senators also debated the so-called Big Beautiful Betrayal Bill, criticizing proposed cuts to Medicaid and food assistance programs, while providing tax breaks to billionaires. Senator Chris Coons of Delaware outlined how the bill would increase costs for families and cause millions to lose health insurance coverage. Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon discussed the history of rising national debt driven by tax cuts and wars over 2 decades. He explained how budget rules have been weakened to allow deficit-increasing legislation through reconciliation, originally intended only for deficit reduction. Senators expressed concern about recent changes to budget procedures that obscure true costs of legislation. They warned that current reconciliation bills could add trillions to the national debt while cutting vital social programs. The Senate passed resolutions condemning political violence following attacks on Minnesota lawmakers. They honored victims and praised law enforcement for their swift response. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana questioned Russia's reliability as an ally amid recent Middle East developments. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts criticized President Donald Trump's military strikes in Iran as risking another war and called for diplomacy. Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer criticized the administration's postponement of classified briefings on Iran and highlighted the harmful effects of Republican budget proposals on healthcare and food security. The Senate also addressed fraudulent firearm sales online that evade background checks, introducing legislation to hold deceptive sellers accountable and reduce gun violence. Other Senate business included recognition of Oklahoma State University's men's golf team for winning the 2025 NCAA Division I championship, and designations for National Sarcoma Awareness Month and World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. The Senate recessed at 7:08 p.m., with plans to reconvene Wednesday afternoon. In the House of Representatives on Tuesday, June 24, 2025, the Speaker pro tempore, Representative Don Bacon, a Republican from Nebraska, presided over morning-hour debate with equal time for majority and minority parties. Representative David Kustoff, a Republican from Tennessee, honored Frederick W. Smith, founder of FedEx, who passed away at age 80. He highlighted Mr. Smith's military service, business innovation transforming global logistics, philanthropy in Memphis including support for local organizations and sports arenas, and dedication to public service. Representative Ben Klein, a Republican from Virginia, recognized Folks Run Groceries' 75 years of family ownership and service in Virginia's 6th District. He congratulated the Stuart Hall schoolboys basketball team on their state championship victory. Klein also supported the Special Interest Alien Reporting Act to enhance transparency about high-risk individuals attempting entry at the southern border. Representative Joe Courtney, a Democrat from Connecticut, discussed recent healthcare legislation passed late at night, and noted challenges in public awareness about its status. Representative Al Green, a Democrat from Texas, introduced House Resolution 537, alleging President Donald Trump committed an impeachable offense by ordering military action against Iran without congressional approval. He framed this as a threat to democracy and announced plans to bring articles of impeachment to the floor. Representative Hernandez of Puerto Rico spoke on violence against women on the island, highlighting alarming femicide rates and underfunded support services. He urged Congress to protect funding for shelters and trauma care. Hernandez also emphasized the importance of Pell Grants for Puerto Rican students and warned against proposed cuts. Representative Weber of Texas honored Robert Turney on his retirement after nearly 30 years in House administration, praising his technical expertise and calm leadership. Representative Ramirez of Illinois celebrated Puerto Rican Heritage Month by honoring musician Bad Bunny for his cultural impact and activism. She also recognized community leader Denise Ruiz and actress Justina Machado for their contributions. Representative Fedorchak, a Democrat from North Dakota, highlighted local festivals winning national awards and congratulated sports figure Randy Hedberg on his Hall of Fame induction. She also recognized retirements of dedicated community members in housing and education. Representative Jeff Fry, a Republican from South Carolina, praised Coastal Carolina University's baseball team for reaching the College World Series final and honored longtime public servant Robert Franklin Childs III. Representative David Harrigan, a Republican from North Carolina's 10th District, recognized retiring Hickory Police Chief Reed Baer and paid tribute to firefighter Jake Bridges, who died in the line of duty. Representative Gus Haradopoulos, a Republican from Florida, praised President Donald Trump's border security achievements, national defense initiatives, including the Golden Dome system, economic legislation supporting workers and families, and foreign policy successes against Iran's nuclear ambitions. Representative Mike Lawler, a Republican from New York, honored FDNY Captain Frederick Sims Jr., celebrated Mount Kisco's 150th anniversary, recognized community leader Dennis Troy, and paid tribute to Sheriff Kevin McConville's long service in transit police. The House adopted House Resolution 530 setting terms for considering key bills, including military construction appropriations, immigration reporting requirements, DUI-related immigration enforcement legislation, and a resolution condemning violent riots in Los Angeles. Representative Austin Scott, a Republican from Georgia, outlined legislative priorities emphasizing support for service members and veterans through appropriations totaling $453 billion. He highlighted bills enhancing border security transparency and closing immigration loopholes related to driving under the influence. Democratic Representative Jim McGovern from Massachusetts criticized immigration bills as redundant or unnecessary and opposed efforts to privatize veterans' health care or restrict abortion access at VA facilities. He called for focus on addressing hunger and healthcare access rather than divisive issues. The House debated foreign policy, with Democrats criticizing President Trump's military actions in the Middle East as reckless and unconstitutional without congressional approval. Republicans defended Trump's decisive leadership, achieving ceasefire agreements and peace efforts. Debate continued over Medicaid and Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program cuts included in budget bills. Democrats warned these cuts would harm millions, including children and seniors. Republicans argued for encouraging able-bodied adults to work while protecting vulnerable populations through exemptions. The House addressed tragic political violence in Minnesota, where former Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were assassinated, and Senator John Hoffman and his wife were critically injured. Members across parties condemned these attacks as assaults on democracy. Resolutions honoring victims were passed with calls for unity against political violence. Several members introduced bills covering topics such as immigrant health insurance access, firearms dealer accountability, missile defense improvements, wildlife refuge protections, recycling programs, firearms licensing grants, election rule reforms, housing protections, tax code amendments, transportation accessibility for disabled individuals, energy policy changes, sanctions related to foreign conflicts, anti-terrorism measures involving firearms sales, and more. The House received multiple executive communications, including reports on Medicaid and CHIP payments, export-import bank activities, national emergencies related to drug trafficking, labor inspector general reports, environmental regulations, patent office rules, transportation safety zones, Medicare payment advisory reports, and others. Members submitted constitutional authority statements, citing Article 1, Section 8, as basis for introduced legislation. The House adjourned at 4:27 p.m., planning to reconvene Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. This concludes today's Congressional Record Summary covering Senate and House activities from June 24th and early June 25th. Thanks for listening. The full source material for this summary is in the description below.